I am in the mechanical corridor with a flathead screwdriver in my right hand and a roll of tape in my left, staring at a pressure gauge that is dropping in slow, polite steps. It should be steady. It has been steady for 46 days. Now it falls a hair, pauses, falls again. The corridor lights are set to night mode, a warm dim that makes everything feel expensive. And it annoys me because expensive lighting does not help when something is failing. I tap the gauge with the screwdriver handle, not hard, just enough to confirm it is not stuck. The needle does not jump, it keeps drifting down. I set the tape down on the floor, kneel, and press my ear closer to the insulated pipe. I hear the pump, but I hear something else too. A faint grit sound, as if the water is dragging something through the loop. That sound is not supposed to exist down here. I built this shelter under a property outside Aspen, where nobody drives past without already knowing who owns the gate. Above ground, the structure is a clean, tasteful guest house and a garage with a workshop that looks ready for snowmobiles and mountain bikes. I paid for permits that never show the full excavation. I paid for contractors who ask no questions and sign paperwork that keeps them safe as long as they do not talk. I did it with the same calm focus I use at work when a client wants certainty in a world that refuses to offer it. My job is risk, not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind that arrives under polite headlines and normal mornings. I have watched markets fall for reasons everyone pretends are unexpected. I have watched governments respond to obvious problems as if surprise is a strategy. I do not need a conspiracy to justify building a place to disappear into. I only needed a calendar and a basic understanding of human behavior under stress. I did not call it a zombie epidemic when I started. I did not call it anything with a catchy title. I called it cascade failure because that is the only honest description. One system goes unstable, then the next, and suddenly, the people who told you everything was fine are asking you to stay calm in a line that wraps around a building. I saw early signs in January, not on television, in small logistics reports and delayed shipments, in hospital staffing memos that became harder to find, in a brief spike of overtime pay at regional morgues that did not match seasonal patterns. My models are not magic. They are only math fed by human data, and human data has a sound when it turns, a certain stubborn rhythm. I heard it turning, and I decided that if I waited for official confirmation, I would be waiting in the same traffic jam as everyone else. The day I sealed the shelter, the public story was still in its early stage. People debated whether it was real. People made jokes to prove they were not afraid. The governor said the state was prepared. The federal agency said the risk to the general public was low. I listened to all of it from the kitchen upstairs while I ate a sandwich and checked my phone. I looked at the snow line on the mountain and the clean sky and the calm driveways. I could have stayed. I could have waited another week. I could have hosted friends and talked about it the way wealthy people talk about bad news, as if language itself is a barrier. Instead, I washed the plate, walked into the garage and locked the door behind me. I moved through the workshop, pressed my palm to the hidden panel beside the tool rack, and waited for the quiet latch to click. The wall slid back. The smell changed, concrete and filtered air. I stepped down the stairs and let the panel close behind me. The first thing everyone imagines about a luxury bunker is comfort. Soft lights, a bar, a gym, a couch that costs more than a car. This shelter has all of that, because I understand morale, and I understand that comfort is not a moral failure when you are trapped. It is a tool. But the real luxury is not leather and granite. The real luxury is time. Time that comes from systems that run without help. Geothermal heating that does not care about a power grid. Water recycling that turns waste into clean. LED grow walls that can feed one person indefinitely if the crops cooperate. Concrete thick enough to mute the world above into a distant suggestion. It is all here exactly as designed, which is why the pressure gauge dropping by tiny steps feels personal. I stand up and walk toward the pump room, boots soft on the sealed floor. There are no loose wires down here, no puddles, no chaos. Everything is clipped and labeled. I do not trust anything that cannot be traced. I open the pump room door and the sound changes. A low hum and a gentle vibration through the walls. The geothermal loop is a closed system that circulates fluid through deep piping, exchanging heat with the earth. It is stable. It is supposed to be boring. I cross to the control panel and check the readouts. Flow rate is down. Not enough to trip an alarm, but enough to ruin my night. I scroll through the logs. The decline started 3 hours ago. Gradual, no sudden spikes. That rules out an obvious leak. I pull on nitrile gloves from a dispenser that makes me feel stupid until I remember that bacteria does not care how well I paid for concrete. I crack open the inspection port on the filter housing. A small hiss. A smell that should not be there. Not sewage, not chemicals. A faint, earthy odor, damp and stale. The smell you get when you open a cooler that sat too long. I angle my flashlight into the housing and see it immediately. A thin film inside the clear section. Faint strands clinging where the fluid slows. Biofilm. Not supposed to happen in this loop. Not with the treatment I used in the sealed fill. Something got in. Something is growing. That is why the pressure is dropping. That is why the system sounds gritty. I close the port and stare at the panel, thinking through the chain. If the geothermal loop clogs, heating becomes less efficient. The shelter can still use electric heat, but electric heat pulls more from the battery bank. The battery bank is charged by the small surface solar array hidden on the property, and by a backup generator that drinks fuel I will never be able to replace. The entire shelter is a math problem, and every new variable is a threat. I do not panic. I do what I always do. I reduce the problem to steps. Step 1, isolate the loop. Step 2, flush and treat. Step 3, find the contamination source so it does not happen again. I switch the loop to bypass and route flow through the secondary filter. The pump hum changes slightly. The pressure stabilizes. Not perfect, but not dropping. I write the time in a notebook I keep clipped to the wall. Not because I am sentimental, because memory is unreliable under stress. I learned that long before this. I grab a sampling vial and draw a small amount of fluid from the test port. Under the flashlight, the fluid looks clean at first glance, but when I tilt it, I see faint particles drifting. I set the vial in a tray and label it. There is no lab down here. There is only me. But I can still confirm whether this is microbial growth or debris from a material failure. Either answer is bad. One is simply worse. I leave the pump room and walk through the corridor toward the living area. The shelter is laid out in zones that can be sealed from each other. Airlocks between sections, fire doors, pressure dampers. I built it with the assumption that something would go wrong, because something always does. The living area has a kitchen, dining table, a media wall that I never use, and a gym that I use every day because routine is an anchor. The grow room sits beyond another door, and the smell changes as I approach it. Humid, green, clean soil and nutrient solution. The LED grow walls are the heart of the shelter. I step inside, and the lights brighten automatically, programmed to simulate a day cycle that keeps plants stable and keeps me sane. The plants do not care that the world above is collapsing. They only care about light, water, nutrient balance, and temperature. That is what I tell myself. but it is not entirely true. Plants are more sensitive than people give them credit for. They respond to small changes that humans barely notice. I walk the rows and inspect leaves, looking for curling edges, discoloration, any sign that the climate control is drifting. Most of it looks fine. Lettuce thick and healthy, basil strong, a row of dwarf tomatoes with blossoms. But there is a patch near the far corner where growth is uneven, thinner stems, pale leaves. That patch has bothered me for a week. I adjusted nutrient ratios, I changed airflow. It improved slightly, then stalled again. Now with the geothermal loop showing contamination, the crop issue feels connected in a way I do not like. I kneel and check the floor drain under that corner. The shelter has a water recycling system that takes everything and routes it through filters, UV treatment, and a membrane system. It is engineering that works as long as you maintain it. The drain has a faint residue ring, not a puddle, not an overflow, just a ring that suggests water sat here and dried. That should not happen. The floor should be dry. I touch the residue with a gloved finger. It smears, slick. I bring my hand up to the light and see a faint gray-green tint. My mouth goes dry, not from fear, from focus. This is evidence. Evidence means the problem is real and not in my head. I stand and go to the wall panel where the grow room plumbing routes into the main water system. I open it and check the lines. One coupling has a slight discoloration, a faint crust. It is not a leak you would see from across the room. It is the sort of leak that happens in slow motion, drop by drop, feeding a hidden microbial bloom. I tighten the coupling carefully, not because I think it will fix everything, but because it is a variable I can control right now. Then I wipe around it and mark the spot with a small strip of tape so I can check it later for new moisture. I close the panel and stand still for a moment, listening to the grow room fans, the hum of lights, the steady sound of life that depends entirely on my attention. A soft tone sounds from the security room. Not an alarm, a notification chime. The shelter's camera network is set to detect movement in specific zones above ground. I do not have cameras everywhere. I am not interested in watching the whole world die from 100 angles. I placed cameras where they matter. The driveway gate, the garage door, the workshop entrance, the tree line on the east side, and the area near the concealed hatch access that is disguised under a slab in the workshop. I walk to the security room, open the door, and step into a space that looks more sterile than the rest of the shelter. A desk, monitors, a radio rack that is mostly pointless because thick concrete and deliberate shielding kill most signals. I built it that way on purpose. I did not want the shelter to be found by accident. I did not want a desperate person to follow a signal into my walls. The monitor shows the driveway gate camera. There are headlights outside, sweeping the snow. A vehicle sits sideways near the gate, engine running unevenly. The gate is closed. A figure moves in the beam, stumbling, then bracing hands on the metal bars. Then another figure appears, and another. They look bundled, hoods up, posture tense. One lifts something and strikes the keypad box. The camera shakes slightly, as if the pole is vibrating from the impact. I zoom in. The image sharpens. These are not my neighbors casually checking in. These are people trying to break in. I have watched people above ground on these monitors before. At first it was quiet. A few cars passing on the road, fewer each day. Then it became strange. Cars parked at odd angles, people walking where nobody walks in winter, smoke from a house in the distance where there should not be smoke because the homeowner travels in January. Then the first night, I saw someone sprint down the road and vanish into the trees, chased by shapes that moved with jerky urgency. I turned off the monitor for 6 hours after that, because I wanted to sleep. I learned quickly that sleep comes whether you deserve it or not, and I cannot afford to lose it. But the next day I turned the monitors back on and forced myself to keep watching in short blocks, because ignoring reality does not make it safer. The people at the gate now are not sprinting. They are testing. They are coordinated enough to work together. One stands back and scans the property, turning his head slowly. I cannot see his face. The camera angle catches the edge of his hood and the stiff set of his shoulders. Another is trying to climb, boots slipping on the metal. I watch for a full minute, not blinking much, and I realize something I should have considered sooner. Aspen is full of homes that are empty half the year. Rich people leave. Their houses sit in silence with stocked pantries and warm interiors. In a collapse, those houses become targets. People will move from one to the next. They will learn patterns. They will learn which properties have power, which have security, which have stores. My property looks maintained. The gate is intact. The drive is plowed. I paid for automated plowing. I thought it would be normal cover. Now it is a beacon. I mute the audio on the camera feed because hearing impacts makes it harder to think. Then I pull up another camera, the workshop entrance. Empty. Another. The tree line. Empty. Another. The garage. Empty. They are focused on the gate. That buys me time. I cannot help them. That is the first hard truth. If I open the gate, I open the property. If I open the property, I invite a swarm. If I invite a swarm, I die in a place I built to avoid dying. That is not bravery or cruelty. It is arithmetic. Still, my hands hover over the controls. For a moment, I imagine speaking through the gate intercom, telling them to leave, telling them there is nothing here. But sound draws attention, and attention is a currency I cannot spend. I shut down the camera display brightness and leave the security room. I go straight to the utility closet where I keep the manual override for the exterior lights. I flip them off. The property goes dark on the cameras, except for moonlight and the thin spill from their headlights. If my place looks dead, maybe they move on. I return to the security room and watch. One of them points at the house. Another shakes his head and gestures at the gate again. They argue without sound. The climber slips and drops back down. After a long minute, they retreat to the vehicle. The headlights swing toward the road. The car backs up awkwardly, scrapes something, then turns and drives away with a fishtail that suggests desperation rather than control. I do not relax. I do not sit back. I write it down in the notebook. Day 46, attempted breach at gate, 3 persons, vehicle unstable. Then I go to the kitchen and fill a glass of water from the filtered tap, because water is the one thing I can still trust today. I drink slowly while staring at the wall, listening for any unusual sound in the shelter. There is no pounding on concrete, no muffled voices. The shelter is quiet enough that silence becomes information. If something changes, I will hear it. I check the time. It is early morning by my schedule, but time down here is an agreement. I set my watch to match the day-night cycle I programmed, and I keep to it. Otherwise, I drift. Otherwise, days become a blur, and a blur becomes mistakes. I decide to do a full systems round. It is not optional anymore. I start with air handling. The shelter uses HEPA filtration and a carbon scrubber for odors and trace compounds. CO2 levels are controlled by a scrubber system that uses media cartridges and a backup chemical absorber. I open the panel and check the sensors. CO2 is slightly higher than yesterday, still safe but higher. I check the fan speed. Normal. That means either the sensor is drifting or the scrubber media is aging faster than expected. Aging faster means humidity or contamination. Contamination means the water system issue may be spreading. I move to the water recycling unit. It sits behind a door in the utility zone. A stack of tanks and filters, UV tubes, a membrane module, and a control panel that is too confident in its own cleanliness. I put on a fresh pair of gloves, open the inspection port on the pre-filter housing, and pull the cartridge. The surface is darker than it should be at this stage. Not brown, more gray-green. My jaw tightens. I set the cartridge in a tray and check the inside of the housing. There is slime in a thin line where water sits when the system cycles, biofilm, down here, in a system designed to prevent exactly this. I close the housing and stand for a moment, listening to the unit's pump. It sounds fine. That is the worst part. It sounds fine because it is not failing fast. It is failing in the slow way that gives you time to make the wrong choice. If I do nothing, the system will degrade. Filters will clog, flow will reduce, water quality will slip. If I act, I risk disrupting the only water source I have. But I built redundancy for a reason. There is an emergency water reserve in tanks, enough for several weeks if I ration. There are chemical treatment supplies. There is a manual distillation unit that is energy hungry and slow, but it can produce clean water if the recycling system becomes unreliable. I did not build this to feel safe. I built it to give myself options when safe stops being available. I shut down the recycling unit. The hum stops. The silence is immediate and unsettling because I am used to hearing it. I label the unit offline on a sticky note and put it directly on the control panel so I do not forget, and turn it on out of habit. Then I switch the shelter water supply to draw from reserve tanks. The pressure in the line drops slightly, then steadies. I turn on the tap in the sink and let it run for a few seconds. Clear water, no smell. I take a small sample in a vial. I will treat the recycling system later with chemical flush and UV re-sterilization, but not until I plan it. Not until I am ready for what happens if it does not restart. I go back to the grow room and check the nutrient reservoir. The reservoir is separate from drinking water, but it is connected in ways that matter. If microbial contamination is coming from a breach in a line or a hidden moisture pocket, it could spread. I lift the lid and shine a light inside. The surface has a thin sheen, not thick, not dramatic. Enough. I do not wait. I shut down the circulation pump and begin the process of draining the reservoir into a waste tank. It takes time. Time means exposure to mistakes. I watch the hoses, make sure nothing kinks, make sure no overflow occurs. I keep my hands steady and my movements controlled. Down here, a spill is not just a mess. A spill is a new habitat for something that does not belong. When the reservoir is drained, I wipe the inside with a disinfectant solution I ration carefully. I scrub corners where film collects. My shoulders ache, not because of fear, because this is labor and I am alone. I replace the reservoir with fresh solution from sealed concentrate bottles and treated water. Then I restart circulation and check pH and conductivity. The numbers settle, I write them down. I do not trust myself to remember. The grow lights hum above me, and the plants stand there, indifferent. I move down the rows again and study the uneven patch in the corner. It might recover. It might not. If it does not, I will have to shift crops to what grows reliably. Salad greens are forgiving. Tomatoes are not. I hate that this matters more than most conversations I used to have upstairs. The security chime sounds again. This time it is the workshop hatch camera. My throat tightens in a practical way, not a dramatic one. I walk quickly but not running. Running makes noise. Noise makes mistakes. I enter the security room and pull up the feed. The camera shows the workshop floor, the disguised slab that covers the access stairwell. There is movement at the edge of the frame. A person is inside the workshop. For a split second, my brain tries to name the impossible. Nobody should be in the workshop. The workshop is locked from the inside, and the garage door is secured. Then I remember the panel that hides the stairwell is not the only entry. There is a concealed exterior access route through a service tunnel that connects to a drainage culvert near the property edge. I built it as a backup escape path. I built it for fire or structural failure. I built it with a mechanical lock that requires a key and a code. I built it because redundancy is life. Now I watch a figure move across the workshop floor, and I realize someone found a way in. The person steps into better view. It is a woman. She wears a winter jacket with the hood down, hair pulled back, face pale under the workshop lights. She looks thinner than I remember, but the posture is familiar. She moves with urgency, not stumbling. She turns her head and scans the room. Then she lifts her hand and bangs on the wall near the hidden panel. Not random, not searching. She knows exactly where to hit. My fingers hover above the intercom control, and I feel a sharp anger that flares up and then collapses into something quieter. Only one person on Earth knows where that panel is without guessing. My sister Elena bangs again. Her gloved knuckles hit the wall with a dull sound. Then she points behind her. Two small shapes move into frame, low to the ground, not zombies, children. One limps. Elena guides them, one hand on a shoulder, the other gripping the wrist of the other child. A third figure staggers in behind them. A teenage girl or a small woman, hard to tell under bulky clothes. She leans on the workbench and lowers her head. Elena turns and grabs her arm, pulling her upright. Elena looks toward the panel again, and even through the camera I can read the expression on her face. Not pleading, not dramatic, determined, angry. The expression of a person who decided that manners are over. I open my mouth to speak into the intercom, then stop. If I speak, I confirm I am here. If I confirm I am here, I change the world above the shelter. Right now, Elena is inside the workshop, which is still above me. If someone followed her, I do not want them to hear a voice and realize there is a deeper structure. I switch to other cameras fast. Driveway gate, empty. Tree line, empty. Garage exterior, empty. Culvert area. Camera shows snow and darkness, no obvious movement. That does not mean nobody is there. It means nobody is visible. Visibility is a privilege. Elena bangs again, then moves to the tool rack and grabs a hammer. She is not searching anymore. She is escalating. She swings at the wall panel area with controlled force, not wild, aiming to break something specific. I know what she is hitting. The panel has a mechanical release behind it. It is not meant to be opened by someone who is not me, but it can be forced if you know where to strike. She knows because she watched me build half of it. She called it paranoid. She laughed when I installed the soundproof layers. She stopped laughing when the first videos hit the internet, the ones that vanished within hours. The ones that showed a person standing back up after being declared dead. I leave the security room and go straight to the main access airlock. It is a small chamber with 2 heavy doors and a decontamination system. Not a fantasy shower, a practical setup. Negative pressure, spray nozzles for disinfectant, UV lights, and a place to strip outer layers and bag them. I turn on the airlock systems. The fans spool up. The indicator lights go from standby to active. I grab extra masks, gloves, a trauma kit, blankets. I move fast, but I do not let myself rush. Rushing is how you make decisions you cannot undo. The moral choice feels obvious in movies. Let family in, save children, be human. But the reality is not a clean test. The reality is this: if Elena is infected, or if one of those kids is infected, or if the injured person is infected, then my shelter becomes a sealed trap with an infection inside it. And this infection is not polite. It is not a normal illness where you isolate and recover. Above ground, I have seen enough on camera to understand the pattern. People get bitten or exposed and then behavior changes. Not always immediately. Sometimes there is a delay. Sometimes someone seems fine until he is not. Then it becomes a violent problem in tight spaces. I stop at the kitchen counter and open a drawer where I keep a printed checklist. I made it months ago. I hate that I did. It feels cold. It feels corporate. It also keeps me from improvising under pressure. The checklist has entry protocol steps for any new person. It includes isolation time, symptom screening, and a rule that feels cruel until you consider the alternative. Nobody enters without going through the airlock, stripping outer clothing, disinfecting, and spending 24 hours in a quarantine room. The quarantine room is comfortable enough. A bed, a bathroom, air that can be isolated from the main system, camera monitoring, food passed through a hatch. It is humane if you do not romanticize it. I take the checklist off the clip and hold it while walking. My grip is tight enough that the paper bends. I reach the airlock control panel and check all seals. Then I go to the manual access control that connects to the workshop panel release. It is a series of mechanical latches that can open the hidden stairwell from below. I can unlock it and let Elena reach the inner door. I can keep it locked and force her to leave. Neither choice feels safe. One is just more final than the other. I return to the security room and look at the workshop feed again. Elena has stopped swinging the hammer. The injured person has slid down to the floor against the workbench. One child sits beside her, holding her hand. The other child stands close to Elena, leaning into her coat. Elena paces once, then kneels and checks the injured person's face, then looks up and stares directly toward the wall where the hidden panel is. She cannot see the camera. She is not performing. Her jaw moves as if she is speaking. I cannot hear it. The soundproofing works. It keeps out the world. It keeps out my sister, too. I switch on the workshop audio feed for a second. It is muffled, but I catch words. Elena's voice is rough. "Victor, I know you are here." She bangs the hammer handle once, not hard. A signal. "Open it. I am not leaving." Her voice tightens. "There are kids." She takes a breath, and then says the part that hits harder than the rest. "Mom is gone." She does not say how. She does not need to. The words drop into the room and sit there, heavy and ugly. I shut off the audio feed and stare at the monitors. My first instinct is to reject the premise. Mom cannot be gone. Mom was careful. Mom was a retired nurse who understood infection control better than anyone in our family. But instinct is not evidence. Evidence is Elena standing in my workshop with children and an injured person. Evidence is her voice sounding older than it should. Evidence is me living in a concrete box I built because I believed this would happen. If I built this to survive and it costs me everyone I care about, then what did I actually build? I unlock the first mechanical latch. The sound is a small click that echoes in the access corridor. I pause. I look at the checklist again. Then I unlock the second latch, then the third. I keep my finger off the final release. I do not open it yet. I take one more pass through the cameras. Gate, empty. Tree line, still. Garage exterior, no movement. Culvert area, still snow. That does not prove safety, but it reduces immediate risk. Elena may have reached me without a tail, or her tail may be out of view. I cannot know. I press the intercom button that routes to the workshop panel speaker. The speaker is hidden behind insulation, so it will sound muted. I keep my voice low. Elena, stop hitting the wall. I hear her freeze in the camera feed. She looks around, eyes wide. Then she leans toward the panel. I continue. I am going to open the stairwell. You will go down to the inner door. You will not touch anything. You will follow the airlock protocol. You will all follow it. My mouth feels dry again, and I hate myself for sounding formal. If you refuse, you do not come in. I pause. If you lie, you do not come in. I pause again. If anyone is bitten, you tell me now. Elena's mouth opens and her face changes, anger and relief crashing into each other. She speaks fast. Nobody is bitten. She is hurt from a fall. He cut his leg. She points at one child. We cleaned it. We wrapped it. She swallows. We ran out of places. People are breaking into houses. There is smoke everywhere. Someone tried to take the kids. She looks down at them and her voice drops. Victor, please. She does not add anything dramatic. She does not beg. She just says my name again, softer. That is worse. That is real. I open the final release. Somewhere above, the hidden panel shifts. The stairwell door in the workshop will unlock. Elena steps toward it on camera, sets the hammer down, and guides the children. She looks back once toward the injured person and grips her arm. The injured person struggles to stand, then manages with help. Elena leads them to the panel and pulls it open. The dark stairwell appears. Elena hesitates for 1 second and looks behind her into the workshop, as if leaving the room is leaving a version of her life. Then she starts down. On my side, the inner door remains sealed. I watch through a small reinforced window in the inner airlock corridor. Not because I want to stare, but because I need to monitor. The stairwell ends at a landing outside the airlock. I see Elena first, stepping down carefully. She looks thinner in person than on camera. Her cheeks are hollowed. Her eyes are sharp. She sees the inner door and stops, raising her hands slightly to show she is not holding anything. Then the children come down behind her. One is a boy around 10, face pinched with exhaustion, a bandage wrapped around his lower leg. The other is a girl, maybe 8, clutching a small backpack with both arms. Behind them, the injured person appears, supported by Elena. She looks young, maybe late teens. Her face is pale and there is dried grime on her jawline. She keeps her eyes down. I do not open the inner door yet. I speak through the intercom again. Stand back, all of you, shoes off, outer jackets off. Put them in the bin. I slide a large plastic bin through the small pass-through slot at the base of the door. It clunks onto the landing floor. Elena looks at it and nods. She does not argue. That alone tells me she has seen enough to understand rules. She moves first, pulling off her jacket and boots, placing them in the bin. Then she guides the children. The boy's hands shake slightly as he unties a bootlace. Not fear, fatigue. The girl fumbles with her zipper. Elena helps her without speaking. The injured person struggles to bend. Elena does it for her, careful. I watch their hands. I watch their faces. I look for the small signs I have seen on camera outside. The abrupt head turns, the twitchy focus, the strange impatience. I do not see it. I see exhaustion and cold, and the dull shock that sits on people when they have been running for days. That does not mean safety. It means I am making the best decision I can with limited data. I open the inner door and step into the airlock chamber, keeping my distance. I wear a mask and gloves. I point to the floor markings. In, one at a time. Elena goes first. The kids follow. The injured person comes last, leaning on Elena. The airlock door seals behind them with a deep mechanical sound that feels final. I shut the inner door behind me, leaving myself on the control side of the chamber separated by a thick glass panel. They are in the decon space. I am on the clean side. I can see them clearly. They can see me. Elena meets my eyes through the glass. Her expression is tight. She wants to talk. I do not let her. I activate the decontamination cycle. Spray nozzles hiss and mist disinfectant over them. Elena flinches, but holds still. The children hold their breath instinctively. I shake my head and gesture. Eyes closed, mouth closed. Stay still. They obey. UV lights come on after the spray phase. The chamber glows with a harsh, sterile light. I watch the timer. I watch their posture. The injured person sways and Elena steadies her. When the cycle ends, I open the inner hatch that allows them to step into the quarantine corridor. I keep the main living door sealed. I lead them down a short hall into the quarantine suite. The quarantine suite is not a cell. It is a small apartment with a bed, a couch, a bathroom, and a wall screen that can show me camera views if I choose. It has its own air handling. It is comfortable because cruelty is inefficient. Elena looks around, and her eyes soften for a second at the sight of clean blankets. Then she looks back at me, and the anger returns. "Victor," she says, voice low. "Mom," I cut her off, not harsh, but firm. "You tell me after you drink water, after you eat, after I check injuries." I point at the couch. "Sit." The boy sits first. He does not take his eyes off the water dispenser on the counter. I fill cups and hand them through a small pass-through opening, maintaining separation. The girl drinks fast and then coughs and looks embarrassed. Elena keeps one hand on the injured person's shoulder, steadying her. The injured person sips slowly, eyes half closed. I ask names, not because I want to be polite, because I need records. The boy is Mason, the girl is Tessa, the injured person is Kira. Elena says Kira is the babysitter from a family down the road. The family is gone. Elena does not say where. I inspect Mason's leg through the glass partition. The cut is wrapped in a clean bandage. There is no fresh bleeding. His skin is cold and his lips are pale. I ask him to lift the bandage slightly so I can see if the wound is deep. He does it, grimacing, then lowers it again. The cut is not severe, but it needs cleaning and a fresh dressing. Kira's injury is worse. She holds her ribs on one side and her breathing is shallow, not dramatic, but guarded. Elena says Kira fell from a back deck when they ran from a crowd. Kira hit a railing and then the ground. Elena says Kira did not black out. Elena says Kira has pain when she moves. That could be bruising. It could be a cracked rib. It could be something else. I have a medical kit. I do not have a hospital. I decide what I can do without compromising quarantine. I prepare supplies, antiseptic wipes, fresh bandages, pain relief that is mild and safe, a thermometer, a blood oxygen monitor, a stethoscope. I put them in a sealed tray and pass them through the hatch. Elena takes them and starts working. I guide her. Clean from the center out. Do not reuse wipes. Watch for redness. Elena nods. Her hands are steady, the hands of someone raised by a nurse mother. Mason sits still, jaw clenched. Tessa watches every move, eyes huge, gripping her backpack. While Elena works, I ask questions that matter. Not about feelings, about risk. Any bites, any scratches from people who were changed. Elena shakes her head hard. No. Any blood on you from someone else? Elena hesitates. That hesitation is information. She looks down. There was a man in the street. He grabbed Kira. He was bleeding. I pushed him off. I hold up my hand. Stop. Where did his blood land? Elena points to her sleeve. On my jacket. I took it off. It went in the bin. I nod. That is why protocol matters. Did any blood touch your skin? Elena shakes her head. No. I had gloves. I had a scarf. I was careful. Her voice breaks slightly on that last word, and she looks away. I want to ask about Mom again, but I do not. Not yet. I focus on the present. The shelter has to remain stable. The systems are already showing contamination. Adding 4 people increases resource draw, air handling load, water use, and risk. It also adds labor and eyes. Elena can help. She can take shifts. She can watch monitors. She can maintain plants. I built this for one person because I assumed I would be alone. That assumption was convenient. It was also a lie I told myself to avoid the harder question. Who do you save when you can save only a few? I close the quarantine suite door from the outside and seal it. Elena's face appears at the small window. How long? She asks. I answer. 24 hours minimum, 48 if there are any symptoms. She stares at me, anger rising again. Victor, we will not survive in there if you treat us as infected. I keep my tone even. You will survive. You have food, you have water, you have heat. This is not punishment. Elena presses her palm to the glass, and for a moment I almost mirror her. Instead, I step back. Sleep, I say. I will talk to you tomorrow. I walk away down the corridor and force myself to do another systems round. Because the shelter does not pause for family reunions, I return to the pump room and check the geothermal loop. Pressure stable on bypass. I check the water reserve levels, still high. I check the air scrubber readings. CO2 slightly higher than before, as expected with additional bodies even in quarantine. I increase fan speed slightly and note the change. I check power draw. It has increased. Not dangerously yet, but the margin shrinks. Then I do the thing I have avoided for 46 days. I sit at the security desk and watch the world above for longer than a quick scan. I pull up the driveway camera and zoom out. The road beyond the gate is empty now, but there are dark shapes in the snow that were not there yesterday. Abandoned vehicles, angled wrong. One has a door hanging open. I pull up the town-facing camera angle. In the far distance, beyond the trees, I see a faint glow that pulses. Fire. Not a campfire. A larger burn. Aspen is not built for uncontrolled fires in winter, but winter does not stop fire when people are desperate and utilities fail and someone knocks over a heater in a house full of dry wood. I open the radio rack even though I know it is mostly useless. I try the emergency weather band. Static. I try a local station frequency. Nothing. The concrete does what it was designed to do. It isolates. It also blinds. I have a small external antenna line that runs up through the workshop for limited signal capture, but I keep it disconnected unless I need it. Connecting it increases the chance that someone with equipment could detect emissions. Still, knowledge matters. I connect the line, power the receiver, and scan. After a long sweep, I catch something weak. A voice, broken, intermittent. It sounds like a local sheriff's office relay. The words come in pieces. Stay inside. Do not. If you see. Then static. Then another burst. Roads blocked. Hospital. No capacity. Then silence again. I disconnect the antenna line and sit still for a moment, absorbing the reality behind those fragments. There is no rescue coming. There is no clean perimeter. The shelter is not a temporary holdout. It is my entire world now, and I just brought 4 more worlds into it. I hear a soft sound in the corridor, a footstep. I turn. Elena stands at the quarantine suite window, looking out. She is not supposed to be out. Then I realize the window is a camera feed on the monitor, not her physically. She is moving inside the suite. She must have found the screen controls. I click into the quarantine suite camera. Elena is pacing. Mason and Tessa sit on the couch with blankets. Kira lies on the bed, eyes closed. Elena stops pacing and looks straight into the camera, as if she knows I am watching. She raises a hand and holds up a piece of paper. She wrote on it with a pen from the drawer. The words are large enough to read on the camera. "We need to talk now." I stare at the monitor. Part of me wants to enforce the rule and ignore her. Another part knows that if I treat Elena as a problem, I will turn this shelter into a prison. A prison will break us faster than hunger. I pick up the intercom and speak into the quarantine suite speaker. "You can talk," I say. From there. Elena's shoulders drop a fraction, relief mixed with frustration. She moves closer to the speaker. Her voice comes through, muffled but clear enough. "Mom is dead," she says, and the words hit with the finality of a door ceiling. I grip the edge of the desk hard enough to feel the smooth surface under my fingers. I do not ask how. I do not ask why. I ask the only question that matters for survival. "Was she bitten?" Elena's face tightens. "No." I wait. Elena continues. "She was helping people at a clinic, not a hospital, a small urgent care. The staff left. She stayed. She kept telling everyone to wash hands and not touch faces and keep distance." Elena swallows. "People got desperate. Someone tried to force their way in. Someone had a wound. Mom tried to stop him. He hit her." Elena's voice shakes, and she stops, breathing controlled. "She fell. Her head hit the tile. It was fast." Elena looks down, then back up. "I could not even bury her the right way. I wrapped her and put her in the cold storage room behind the clinic. I locked it." She wipes her face with the back of her hand, angry at herself for showing anything. I close my eyes for a brief second. Not to dramatize it, to keep myself from saying something useless. I open my eyes and ask another survival question. Did she change? Elena's jaw tightens again. I did not stay long enough to find out. She says it as a confession. I could not. People were screaming outside. The doors were shaking. I took the kids and ran. Elena's eyes harden. Victor, you do not get to judge me for that. You would have done the same. She is right, and I hate that she is right. I ask about the kids, Elena explains in short bursts. Mason and Tessa are from a neighbor's house where their parents tried to hold out, then ran out of food and tried to reach town. They never came back. Elena found the kids hiding in a closet when she went looking for supplies. She took them because leaving them was not an option she could live with. Kira was watching them. Kira got hurt when a crowd tried to force entry into a house where Elena was sheltering. Elena says the crowd was not infected at first. Just people, hungry, cold, convinced someone else had resources. Elena's eyes flick to the side as she talks, scanning the room out of habit. People are worse than the infected, she says quietly. Then she catches herself, as if she realizes how it sounds. Not always, but when things broke, the first danger was people. I feel my own assumptions shifting. I built my shelter to block out noise, to block out signals, to block out humans. I told myself I was avoiding chaos. I was also avoiding responsibility. I cannot change that now. I can only decide what I do next. I tell Elena the rules again, softer this time. Quarantine stays. I'm not opening it early. Not for grief, not for anger, not for comfort. Elena nods once. Curt. Fine. She looks exhausted, and it shows in the way her shoulders sag when she stops fighting. But you need help. I can see that. Your face looks wrong. I almost laugh at that, but there is no humor in it. She is right. I have been alone too long. I have been running systems and watching a world die through cameras. My face probably does look wrong. After the call, I prepare food trays and slide them into the quarantine hatch. Simple meals, protein bars, soup packets, fruit cups. Not because I am trying to punish them with bland food, because I need to preserve the fresh produce until I know crop stability. I portion carefully. Elena will notice. Elena will not like it. Elena will understand when I show her the numbers. That night, the shelter feels different. Not louder, not crowded, just inhabited in a way that changes the air. The CO2 readings rise and fall with their sleep cycle. The power draw is slightly higher from the quarantine suite lights and ventilation. The water reserve tank level drops by a fraction. Tiny changes, but real. I lie in my bed in the master room and stare at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of fans and pumps. I do not think about Mom directly. I think about logistics because grief is a wave and logistics is an anchor. I promise myself I will grieve later when it is safe. That promise is a lie people tell themselves to survive. In the early hours by my schedule, an alarm tone sounds. A real alarm this time, not a camera chime. The shelter's exterior vibration sensor triggers when heavy impacts occur near the concealed hatch slab. I sit up instantly, swing my feet to the floor, and move down the corridor without turning on extra lights. I go to the security room and bring up the workshop camera. The image shows the workshop floor again, but now there are shadows moving fast. A man steps into view, then another. They carry flashlights. One points toward the hidden panel. My stomach turns cold with clarity. They know. I switch to the culvert camera. There is movement there now. Figures near the snowbank. One crouched at the concealed access point. That means someone found Elena's route. That means someone followed her, or someone saw tracks, or someone knew the property's secrets already. Either way, my shelter is no longer invisible. It is an asset someone wants. The men in the workshop move with purpose. One kneels near the panel seam and runs his hand along it. Another checks the door locks, tests the wall. This is not random looting. This is a breach attempt. I zoom in. The kneeling man has a crowbar. He wedges it and pries. The panel holds. He tries again. The third man lifts a hammer and strikes near the edge. The vibration sensor alarm persists. The concrete overhead will damp sound. But the workshop is above the shelter's access corridor. Impacts there matter. I have a choice. If I do nothing, they may break through the panel and reach the stairwell. Then they will reach the inner door. The inner door is stronger than the panel, but if they are determined and have time, they can cause damage. Damage leads to vulnerabilities. If I engage, if I speak through the intercom, I reveal that someone is inside. That could escalate them from looters to siege. But if they already know this place exists, silence may not help. They may keep working until they succeed or until they draw others. I open the emergency protocol binder on the desk. Yes, I made a binder. I hate it, but I made it. The surface breach section gives options. There is an external deterrent system installed in the workshop access zone. A loud alarm and strobe that can disorient intruders and draw attention from outside. I installed it for exactly this scenario, expecting it would make intruders leave because noise is risk. But noise is also a magnet. In a world full of infected drawn to sound, an alarm is not a simple deterrent. It is a flare. Another option. Seal the workshop area from below by locking down the stairwell door at the landing and activating a smoke-neutral gas discharge into the workshop space. Not poison, not something that harms. A dense fogger system meant to obscure vision and irritate eyes, forcing intruders out. It is legal in the world that existed when I installed it. It is also risky because it can push people into panic, and panic leads to unpredictable damage. Still, unpredictability favors defense more than siege does. I choose the fogger, not because I want to hurt anyone, because I need them gone fast without creating a beacon that brings half the county to my driveway. I flip the safety cover and arm the system. A warning light blinks. I check the quarantine suite camera quickly. Elena is awake, standing near the door, eyes alert. She must have heard the alarm tone through the ventilation. Mason and Tessa are sitting up, blankets clutched. Kira is trying to sit, wincing. Elena looks into the camera with a question in her face. I speak into the quarantine intercom. Stay inside, lock your door, do not open for anything. Elena nods once, hard. I activate the fogger in the workshop. On camera, a nozzle near the ceiling releases a thick cloud. It blooms fast, swallowing the space in pale haze. The men cough and wave hands. One swings his flashlight beam wildly, turning it into a useless cone. Another backs toward the garage door, stumbling over a stool. The kneeling man rises, crowbar in hand, and yells something I cannot hear through the muted feed. They retreat, not orderly now, but moving. One slams into the workbench. The fog thickens. Within seconds, the workshop is an indistinct blur with shadows moving toward exits. I do not celebrate. I keep watching. The culvert camera shows the crouched figure stand and run, slipping in snow, then regaining footing. Another figure appears behind him, pointing back toward the property as if signaling others. That signal matters. It means this is not a lone group. This is a network of desperate people who communicate. 5 minutes later, the workshop camera shows the fog thinning slightly. No movement. The men are gone, but the damage may already be done. I check the panel seam. Hard to see through the haze, but I can see the panel edge is slightly shifted. They did not breach fully, but they learned. And now they know there is resistance. A defended asset is still an asset. I do the next realistic thing. I prepare for the second attempt. People who test a door do not stop forever. They stop until they have better tools or more bodies. I move through the shelter and activate lockdown mode. Interior zones seal. The stairwell landing door locks. The ventilation dampers shift to prevent smoke or contaminants from being pulled in if the panel breaks. I switch certain systems to quieter settings. I reduce internal lighting. I shut down any unnecessary electrical draw. I do not want any surface thermal signature changes if someone has equipment that can read it. That may sound paranoid. It is also common sense now. I spend the next hour moving between cameras and mechanical panels, checking for any sign the workshop impacts caused cracks or pressure changes. The shelter is buried deep and reinforced. The workshop is a separate structure above the access point. Still, repeated impacts can shake things loose. I check the vibration logs. I check the stairwell door seal. I check the airlock pressure. Everything holds. For now. When the immediate threat passes, I finally allow myself to speak to Elena again. I go to the quarantine intercom. People were in the workshop, I say. Elena's face hardens. I knew it, she says. I saw someone at the tree line when we crossed the property. That piece of information lands with weight. She did have a tail. She did not tell me, or she did not want to believe it. Either way, the consequence is real. Why did you not tell me? I ask. Elena stares at me through the camera. Because you already hate me for showing up, she says, voice low. I did not want you to close the door. Her honesty is sharp. I do not argue. I cannot argue with a person carrying 2 kids through a broken town. I ask Elena to describe what she saw. She gives details. A man in a dark jacket, a flashlight blink, tracks near the tree line. She says she took a longer route to the culvert to avoid the road, but she thinks someone saw the workshop lights when she broke in to reach the panel. That means the breach attempt was opportunistic and fast. They saw movement and followed. That makes it worse in a way, because it means anyone can stumble onto this place now if they see activity. I tell Elena the shelter is now compromised. Her eyes narrow. So what do we do? She asks. The question is practical. It is also terrifying because it implies there is a we now, whether I like it or not. I answer honestly. We reduce surface signatures. We avoid using the workshop entry unless it is emergency. We strengthen the panel from below if possible. We prepare an exit plan through the drainage route if the property becomes a siege zone. Elena's face shifts when she hears exit. You built this to stay, she says. You built this to outlast. I nod. I built this to have options. Outlasting only works if you do not get trapped. The next day, quarantine ends for the kids first, then Elena, then Kira last. Nobody shows obvious symptoms. Mason's leg looks clean. Tessa has a mild cough that seems more from dry air than illness. Kira's ribs remain painful but stable. I make the decision to integrate them into the shelter. I do it with caution, not ceremony. I open the quarantine door and step back. Elena emerges first, eyes scanning the corridor, taking in every camera and panel, already thinking about defense. The kids move slowly, looking around at clean walls and lights, and the absurd normalcy of it. Kira moves carefully, one hand pressed to her side, jaw clenched. The shelter feels smaller immediately, not physically, socially. My routines collide with theirs. I assign tasks fast because idle time becomes anxiety time. Elena takes security monitoring shifts. Mason and Tessa get simple chores. Wipe surfaces, help sort supplies, learn where not to touch. Kira rests, then helps in the grow room when she can, because her hands are steady, and she seems calmer when she has something practical to do. I show Elena the system panels and the binders and the redundancies. She looks at me with a mixture of respect and disgust. You really built a whole life under concrete, she says. I nod. Yes. She shakes her head slowly. And it still breaks, she says, glancing toward the utility corridor. I do not deny it. Everything breaks. The goal is to break slower than the world outside. Days become heavy with activity. We rotate through maintenance, cleaning, cooking, monitoring, and sleep. I teach Elena the water system status. I show her the biofilm issue. She listens carefully and asks the right questions. Where is it coming from? She asks. A leak, I say, or a breach, or a dead pocket of moisture. Elena rubs her forehead. Can we sterilize? She asks. We can, I say, but it risks downtime. Elena nods. Then we plan. We do it when the reserve is full and everyone knows the drill. She speaks as if she has always lived here. That irritates me. It also helps. On day 52, by my count, a new catastrophe arrives, not through a hatch, but through the mountain itself. The security cameras show a distant rumble of snow and debris on a hillside. At first, it looks like a normal avalanche line. Then the power draw spikes and the lights flicker. The shelter does not lose power, but something upstairs does. The surface solar array stops reporting. The exterior cameras blink off one by one, then come back with reduced quality. The workshop camera goes dark completely. I feel the loss as if a sense was removed. I check the external system panel, The surface junction box is down, possibly crushed, possibly damaged by debris movement or ice. We still have battery reserves, but battery reserves are not infinite. The generator is backup, but fuel is finite. The whole shelter's long-term math shifts again, and it shifts because nature did something that does not care about my planning. Elena stands beside me in the security room while I check the logs. "How long on battery?" she asks. I run the numbers quickly, not exact, but close enough. "If we ration hard, months," I say. "If we keep living as normal, weeks." Elena nods. "Then we ration," she says, as if it is that simple. It is not simple, but it is necessary. Mason and Tessa sit behind us on the couch, listening. Children hear everything. They just pretend they do not. We change routines, lights lower, grow wall cycles adjusted to reduce draw without killing crops, air handling reduced slightly but still safe. Water recycling remains offline until I can sterilize it. That means reserve tanks drain slowly. Kira helps me in the grow room, and we replant more greens because greens give calories and vitamins faster than fruiting plants. We cut down on tomatoes and focus on lettuce, kale, herbs. It feels wrong to simplify life to plant choices, but this is what survival becomes, a series of small decisions that add up. Above ground, the cameras that remain show more smoke now, more movement, fewer cars, more foot traffic. Sometimes shapes move in ways that are not human. Sudden turns, stiff gait, heads snapping toward sound. We avoid watching too long in front of the kids. Elena insists on that. She says the kids need stability. She is right. But stability is hard to fake when a screen shows a person running and falling and not getting back up. On day 60, the siege returns. We hear it first through vibration sensors, impacts at the gate. Then the camera feed from the road shows a small group with vehicles, not many, but organized. They block the road with a truck. They walk to the gate with tools. One holds a rifle. He does not aim it at the gate. He carries it as a message. Another holds a megaphone. I do not hear his words through the muted camera audio, but I see his mouth move and his body language is confident. He points at the house. He points at the gate. He points down at the driveway as if telling someone to come out. Elena watches beside me, face rigid. "They think there is power here," she says. "They think there is food." I nod. "There is," I say. Elena looks at me sharply. "Do not say that," she says. "Even down here." Her point is clear. Words matter. Mindset matters. If we keep framing this as a stash someone can take, we will act as if we are already robbed. I breathe out slowly and focus on the task. "We do not engage," I say. Elena nods. "No voice, no lights," she says. They test the gate. They cut at it. They pull at the bars with a chain attached to the truck. The gate holds for a while. Then one hinge groans. The camera shakes slightly. The gate begins to bend. I watch without blinking much. My hands rest on the desk in a steady posture because there is nothing else to do. I cannot go out and fight. I cannot reason with a person who brought tools and a megaphone to someone else's home during an apocalypse. I cannot bargain with someone who believes force is a solution. I can only let the property above become a battlefield while my shelter stays sealed. The gate finally gives, not fully collapsing, but bending enough for a person to squeeze through. Two men slip inside. They move fast, scanning. They approach the house, then split, one heading toward the garage. I feel my throat tighten in a functional way again. The garage is where the workshop is. The workshop is where the panel is. The panel is where the stairwell is. Elena moves closer to the monitor, eyes sharp. "This is where it happens," she says quietly. I shift to the workshop interior camera, still dark from the earlier damage. No feed. That blind spot is a nightmare. Elena sees my face and understands. "We need eyes," she says. "I have a solution. It is risky. There is a small fiber camera on a snake line meant for pipe inspections. I can feed it through a tiny maintenance port that opens into the workshop ceiling cavity. It will not give full view, but it might show movement near the panel. I grab the kit and move. I go through the utility corridor to a maintenance hatch above the access stairwell, open it, and feed the camera line upward through the conduit. My hands move carefully. I do not want to snag the line. The monitor on the handheld unit flickers, then shows a dim view of insulation and wood beams. I guide it forward, inch by inch, until the edge of the workshop appears below through a small gap. The view is narrow and angled, but enough. I see the floor, I see the tool rack, I see shadows moving. Someone is inside the workshop again. 2 men this time, not the earlier 3. They move with purpose, sweeping flashlights heading straight toward the panel area. That means someone told them where it is, or they already learned from the first attempt. One kneels. The other stands guard. Then, in the corner of my narrow camera view, another shape moves. Not human movement. Low, quick, wrong. The kneeling man does not see it. The standing man turns his head, hears something. The shape lunges into frame, fast. The standing man stumbles back and swings his flashlight as if it is a weapon. The kneeling man stands too late. I cannot see details clearly, and I do not want to. I see enough to understand what is happening. An infected person, drawn by the noise of the gate and the workshop entry, has reached the garage area. It is inside the structure now. It collides with them in a messy burst of motion. The men shout. One falls. The other tries to back away toward the garage door. The infected moves in abrupt angles, not slowing, not negotiating. The man slams into a workbench. The flashlight beam skitters across the wall, then drops. The image becomes chaos of legs and shadows. Elena stands behind me, watching the handheld screen. Her hand grips my shoulder hard. "Turn it off," she says. Her voice is flat. I do not argue. I pull the camera back slightly so the view shifts to empty ceiling space. The sounds from above do not reach us clearly, but the vibration sensors capture impacts. The shelter's quiet is pierced by distant thuds through layers of concrete and earth. Then a long, scraping sound that could be a body dragged or a tool dropped and kicked. Then silence. Silence does not mean safety. Silence means the situation has changed. It could mean the men are dead. It could mean the infected is wandering. It could mean someone else is still inside, holding still. I look at Elena. She looks back, eyes hard, and I see the same conclusion in her face. The infected is now in my workshop zone. That is above my head. That is near my access panel. If it stays there, it becomes a future problem every time we need to use the stairwell. If it breaks something in its movement, it becomes an immediate structural problem. We lock down further. I seal the stairwell door fully and cut ventilation to the workshop-adjacent conduits. I activate the fogger again, not as deterrent now, but as a way to push the infected out of the workshop and into open space where it might wander away. Fogger on. On the handheld camera view, pale haze blooms again along the edge of the workshop. No clear movement, just fog rolling. I cannot see where the infected goes. I can only hope it leaves. On the driveway camera, the group at the gate reacts to something. One man points toward the garage. Another raises his rifle and backs away. The megaphone man shouts, gesturing for others to retreat. Then, from the tree line, more movement appears. Not coordinated humans, a small cluster of infected shapes moving erratically, drawn by the noise and the light. The group at the gate starts to run, not in a neat retreat, but in messy panic. The truck starts, tires spinning. One person falls near the gate and scrambles up. The group piles into vehicles and drives off in a chaotic line, leaving the gate bent and the property compromised, but not occupied. Elena exhales slowly, shoulders dropping. Mason and Tessa stand in the hallway behind her, watching, faces pale. Kira stands with one hand on the wall for balance, eyes fixed on the monitors. Nobody speaks for a long moment. Then Elena turns to me and says, "This is what happens when you build something worth taking." Her voice is not accusing. It is stating a fact. I nod. "And this is what happens when people learn a path," I say, thinking of the culvert. Elena's jaw tightens. "We cannot use it anymore," she says. "We need another exit." I swallow. There is no other safe exit. There is only risk management. That night, we do something that feels insane, but it is logical. We reinforce the panel from below. I take steel brackets and anchor bolts from storage, the kind meant for structural reinforcement. I bring them to the stairwell landing and install them against the underside of the panel framing. It is awkward work. I strain my hands. Elena holds the light and passes tools, steady and quiet. Kira sits on the stairwell steps with a blanket around her shoulders, ready to help if needed. The kids are kept in the living area with the door locked, watching a movie on low volume because Elena insists they need something normal. I do not disagree. Normal is not the enemy, denial is. When the reinforcement is done, the panel will be harder to pry open from above. Not impossible, harder. Harder buys time. Time buys options. That is the only currency we have now. Over the next week, I sterilize the water recycling system. I plan it carefully. We fill reserve tanks to maximum. We prepare the distillation unit as backup. We shut down the recycling system, drain it, flush lines with a chemical solution strong enough to strip biofilm, then run UV cycles longer than recommended. The shelter smells faintly of disinfectant for 2 days. The kids complain. Elena tells them it is the smell of safety. Mason asks if the water will run out. I tell him the truth in a way a kid can handle. We are making it clean so it lasts longer. He nods and accepts it because kids accept reality faster than adults when you do not lie. The system comes back online. The first water output tests clean. I do not trust it fully yet. I keep checking. Every day. I also keep checking the geothermal loop. I flush that too, treating it and replacing filters. The biofilm declines. The pressure stabilizes higher. The shelter returns to a version of stability that is still fragile but functional. We settle into a new routine, one built for 5 people instead of 1. But the biggest change is not mechanical. It is psychological, and I hate that word because it sounds academic. The change is simple. I am no longer the only mind in this box. Elena challenges me. She questions decisions. She pushes for riskier moves sometimes, not reckless, but human. She wants to salvage supplies from the workshop because there are tools and fuel in the garage and possibly spare parts for the solar junction. I want to stay sealed forever. We argue without yelling, because yelling wastes oxygen and dignity. She calls my caution cowardice. I call her urgency a path to getting us all killed. The truth is, both of us are partially right. We compromise in the way adults do when they are trapped together. We plan. We set criteria. We do not improvise. We decide that if we can confirm the workshop is clear of infected and clear of humans for a full day, we will send one person up for a fast salvage run. Not a raid, not hero work, a 10-minute job. Check the panel integrity, retrieve critical supplies, and retreat. We set it for early morning by our schedule when exterior movement tends to be lower. The night before the planned run, the shelter receives a sound through the concrete that makes every hair on my arms rise, not in a dramatic sense, in a recognition sense. A rhythmic thump, not the gate, not the workshop impacts. This is closer. This is directly above the access corridor. It is someone on the workshop floor, walking, stopping, walking again. Then a scrape, metal on concrete. Then silence. I look at Elena. She looks back. No words. We move to the security room. The workshop camera is still dead. The driveway camera shows nothing. The handheld fiber camera view shows only ceiling insulation unless I feed it back into position. I do. Slowly. The view shifts. I see the workshop floor through the gap again. There is someone there. A man. He stands near the panel seam. He is alone as far as I can see. He holds a pry bar. He's not swinging it. He's waiting, as if he knows the door is there, and he knows someone is behind it, and he is patient enough to make it a long problem. He sets the pry bar down and pulls out something else. A small device, rectangular, with an antenna. He holds it up, turning it slowly. A detector. Not sophisticated military equipment. Something a prepper could build. Something that might pick up electromagnetic leaks, heat anomalies, vibrations. He sweeps it near the panel, then pauses. His posture changes. He found something. Maybe a temperature gradient. Maybe a faint hum. Maybe the smallest evidence that there is a space below. Elena's voice is low. He is not going away, she says. I do not answer because there is no clean answer. If we stay silent, he may keep testing until he finds a weakness. If we engage, we confirm the shelter. If we wait too long, he may bring others. If we act rashly, we may trigger a fight in a workshop above our heads. We are sealed in. Our advantages are strength of door and depth of structure. His advantage is time and initiative. I make a decision that feels wrong and still logical. I will not speak, I will not bargain, I will not threaten. I will make the workshop an unattractive place to remain. Not by noise, not by violence, by making it inhospitable. The fogger system again, but used differently. I configure it to cycle in pulses every few minutes for an hour, turning the workshop into a constant irritation zone. Eyes burn. Vision blurs. Breathing becomes unpleasant. No one wants to camp in that. An infected person might not care, but a human will. I arm the fogger. The man on camera stiffens when the first haze blooms. He steps back, waves his hand. He tries to wait it out. Another pulse hits. He coughs and backs toward the garage door. He looks angry now. He points the device at the panel again, as if to confirm his suspicion, then shakes his head and retreats, leaving the pry bar on the floor for a moment before grabbing it and going. He moves fast, annoyed, not defeated. He leaves. The workshop empties again. Elena watches the empty floor on the handheld screen for a long moment. He will come back, she says. I nod. Yes, I say. Then I say the next part that I have avoided since Elena arrived. We cannot stay here forever if the shelter is known. Elena's eyes narrow. Then what? She asks. I look down at the map binder I keep in the security desk drawer, the one with routes, culverts, and contingency plans. I flip it open and trace a line with my finger. We move, I say. Not today, not tomorrow, but we plan for it. We pack, we prepare. We choose a time when the surface chaos shifts away from this property. Elena's face changes. She does not like leaving a stable base. Nobody does. But she also understands. Where? She asks. I tell her the plan I built as a fantasy option months ago. A secondary property farther out. less valuable, less obvious, with a smaller hardened basement and a water source nearby. Not luxury, not self-sustaining long-term, but invisible. Invisible is worth more than granite now. Elena listens, then nods slowly. We will not make it if we run blind, she says. We need information first. She looks toward the dead radio rack. We need to know what is happening out there. I agree. The shelter's strength is also its weakness. It blocks signals. It blocks knowledge. To leave, we need a clearer view. 2 days later, Elena and I make the most dangerous decision we have made so far. We re-enable the external antenna line for longer and attempt to capture real broadcasts, not to transmit, only to listen. We do it at a time when the property is quiet. We do it with strict rules. If any sign of detection occurs, we shut down. I connect the line and scan frequencies slowly. For a while it is static and dead air. Then faintly a voice. It is not official. It is shaky and tired. A man reading names. He says he is in Denver, broadcasting from a rooftop with a generator. He says hospitals are closed. He says the infected are not dead. He says not to trust anyone offering a safe zone unless you see it with your own eyes. He repeats the same message twice, then switches to another frequency and repeats again, as if hoping someone catches one of them. Elena's face is tight as she listens. Mason and Tessa are in the living room with Kira, doors closed, unaware. Elena whispers, "This is real." I nod. The voice sounds real. It has the uneven cadence of a person who has not slept. It has the bluntness of someone who stopped caring about sounding calm. That kind of voice does not come from a studio. We shut down the antenna line after 10 minutes. 10 minutes feels too long. Then we sit in silence, absorbing what we learned. Denver is still broadcasting in some form. That means there are pockets of functioning humans. That means travel is possible for someone. It also means danger is organized now. People broadcast warnings for a reason. People broadcast traps for the same reason. That night, the shelter is quiet again. The kids sleep. Kira sleeps. Elena sits at the dining table and sorts supplies into packs with a calm that looks practiced now. I watch her and realize something that stings. Elena adapted faster than I did. She lived the collapse above ground. She saw people turn on each other. She saw mom die because someone wanted entry. She carries that reality in her posture. I lived in a clean box and watched through cameras. I survived, but I did not adapt. Not fully. Survival is not only staying alive, it is staying functional. On day 68, we do the salvage run anyway, because the solar junction box matters, and because the workshop is part of our escape path whether we like it or not. We plan it carefully. Elena goes. Not me. I argue. She refuses. You are the system's brain, she says. If I do not come back, you keep them alive. Her words are blunt. They are also correct. Kira wants to go too, but Elena says no. Kira is still healing, and movement pain makes mistakes. Elena straps on protective layers, gloves, mask, a face shield. Not because it stops everything, but because it reduces risk from splatter and surprise contact. I unlock the inner door, run the airlock cycle, and let her up into the stairwell with a small pack and a toolkit. While Elena is up there, time becomes thick. I stay in the security room watching the handheld camera feed and the few remaining exterior cameras. The workshop itself is partially visible through the ceiling gap. I see Elena's boots step into frame. I see her move with controlled speed, not running. She goes straight to the panel and checks it, touches the reinforced edge, nods. She moves to the junction box near the wall where the solar line enters, opens it, and inspects. The box is damaged. Wires are frayed. She does not fix it. She only confirms. She grabs a spare coil of cable and a set of connectors from a shelf, then moves to the garage storage and grabs 2 fuel cans and a small box of tools. She does not linger. She returns to the panel, drops into the stairwell, and vanishes from the workshop view. Then, as she disappears, something moves at the garage threshold, a shadow that does not match her. An infected shape steps into the workshop, drawn by the movement and the faint noise. It turns its head sharply, scanning. It does not see Elena because she is already down. It takes a step closer to the panel area, sniffing the air in a way that looks animal but is still human-shaped. It leans toward the panel seam. My hands move faster than my thoughts. I hit the fogger again, full pulse. The haze blooms, and the infected reacts instantly, jerking back, coughing. It thrashes its arms and stumbles toward the garage. It retreats, driven by irritation rather than fear. Elena's voice comes through the stairwell intercom, controlled but sharp. "What?" she snaps. I answer fast. "Infected entered workshop. Fogger pushed it back. Keep moving." Elena does not waste words. "Copy," she says, and I hear her footsteps descending fast. When Elena returns through the airlock, she looks at me through the glass with a hard expression that holds anger and gratitude in the same space. She does not speak until decon is done. Then she steps into the clean corridor and sets the supplies down. "We cannot do that again," she says, "not without clearing the garage." I nod. "Agreed," I say, "and we are leaving sooner than I wanted." Elena exhales slowly and nods once. "Good," she says, "because the world is getting smarter." We spend the next days preparing the move, packing food, packing water containers, packing medical supplies, packing tools. Kira helps, moving slowly, stubborn. Mason and Tessa get small jobs that keep them involved without exposing them to danger. Elena teaches Mason how to stay quiet, how to watch corners, how to move without panic. I hate that she has to teach a child that. I also know it is necessary. The final complication arrives on the morning we plan to leave. The vibration sensors trigger again, not from the gate, but from the workshop panel directly. Impacts, heavy, repeated. Someone is prying again. And this time it is not a curious loner. The handheld camera view shows boots, multiple sets, moving fast in the workshop. Flashlight beams sweep, the pry bar wedges, the reinforced panel holds longer, but the men are persistent. One carries a portable saw. He positions it near the seam. The whine starts. The sound is muffled through layers, but the vibration sensor screams in my panel. Elena stands beside me, face hard. Kira stands behind her. Mason and Tessa are in the hallway, wide-eyed, clutching small bags. We do not have the luxury of waiting now. If they breach the panel, they reach the stairwell. If they reach the stairwell, they reach the inner door. Even if the inner door holds, the noise and the struggle will draw infected, and we will be trapped in a siege with limited power and a compromised surface. Leaving later could be impossible. I look at Elena. She nods once. No debate. We move. We do the exit plan through the drainage culvert route, not the workshop stairwell. It is risk, but it is the only route not currently under attack. We packed for this. We practiced the sequence. Practice is the only thing that makes fear manageable. We shut down non-essential systems. We lock internal doors. We take the go bags. Elena leads the kids. Kira follows, moving stiffly. I bring up the rear, carrying the tool pack and the map binder and the small receiver that might catch broadcasts. We move through the utility corridor to the concealed service tunnel. The tunnel is narrow and damp, concrete-lined, sloping slightly upward. It smells of earth and cold water. I hate the smell now because it reminds me of the biofilm problem and of the fact that nothing stays clean forever. We reach the mechanical lock at the tunnel exit. I enter the code by touch, not looking at the keypad too long. The lock clicks. The exterior hatch opens to a wall of cold air. I step out first, scanning. Snow, trees, quiet, no headlights, no voices. The sky is pale with early light. The property behind us is still, but somewhere above, the workshop impacts continue. We move low and fast through the trees, not running, not stopping. Elena keeps the kids close, hands on their shoulders. Kira moves carefully, jaw clenched. We reach the edge of the property and see the road beyond. There are abandoned cars, some snow-covered. The gate is bent. The driveway is a mess of tracks. In the distance, smoke rises. The world above is not a place to linger. We move along a tree-line route toward the secondary property plan I built into my binder months ago, the less valuable option. It is not far in miles, but miles are not the measure now. The measure is exposure time. Every minute above ground is a minute where the wrong person sees you, or the wrong sound draws something, or a mistake forces you into a sprint you cannot sustain. As we walk, I feel the strange grief of leaving my bunker. Not because I loved the concrete, because it represented control. It represented proof that I could outthink disaster. And now, I am walking away from it with 4 other people depending on me, and the shelter behind me is being torn apart by strangers with tools. My models did not predict this exact day, but they did predict the core truth. Collapse outruns response. What I failed to model was what collapse does to me. It turns me into a person who has to choose between being right and being human, and it does not let me stop choosing. We reach a ridgeline where we can see back toward the property for a moment. The house and garage are small shapes among trees. I see movement near the garage. I see figures. I see a cluster of infected shapes drawn to the noise. Then, faintly, I hear it, carried on cold air. Shouts, not clear words, panic sounds, then a gunshot, a single crack that echoes off the mountain. Elena flinches slightly. Not dramatics, just a reflex. She keeps moving. Mason keeps his head down. Tessa grips Elena's sleeve harder. Kira does not look back. I look back one last time, then force myself to face forward. The luxury bunker was never the real point. The real point was surviving long enough to keep making decisions. Now the decisions are no longer about filters and pumps. They are about people, about kids who need sleep and food and safety, about a sister who is angry and loyal and tired, about a young woman with cracked ribs who keeps walking anyway, about me, a man who thought he could buy control under concrete, learning that control is not a place. It is a discipline you practice while everything tries to take it away. We keep moving into the trees, following the route I marked months ago with a pencil I assumed I would never need, heading toward a smaller, uglier shelter that will not impress anyone, hoping that being unimpressive is the new definition of safe. And every few minutes, without anyone saying it, we all listen for sounds behind us. Not because we want drama, because sound is information now, and information is the only thing that still feels expensive.